The old method of motivating employees looked something like this. There's a carrot and there's a stick. Welcome to Dave Talks Business.
We have Dave Kramer, the founder of All Pro Web Tools.
Dave has worn many hats over the years as a small business owner.
Well, I really feel that small business is the core of the American economy.
Amen.
The old carrot used to be money. The old stick used to involve yelling or firing. Now, we live in a punitive society. If a law is broken, we go to court. And many of us came from parenting where yelling was just how things got taken care of. But it's a lot like if you wear shoes that don't quite fit and they rub your feet the wrong way, you might eventually form a blister, which will be painful. But after a while, that blister will turn into a callus, and then you won't feel it anymore. I've noticed the same thing when it comes to yelling or chastisement of employees. They start to get a glazed look on their face and they're not really engaged anymore. They might be saying, yeah, I'm sorry, I won't do it anymore, but they're not really listening. The goal is to instruct them so that they will make a change in the future.
So who, according to company policy, who is the one responsible to check?
Everybody. Each day that you're there, a part of your duties that day is to check what's coming on in the Bible, make sure that it's staged and ready to go for the next day. Also, what balloons are being picked up tomorrow, make sure those are made and ready to go for the next day so that everything is ready to go the day before. That's always.
So that's all in the SOPs, or it's okay. So it sounds to me like, from what you're telling me, both of them are responsible to have checked. So I don't understand where the conflict is. If they both missed it, they both didn't follow the policy, I would end the discussion right there. I mean, if they want to talk about, well, he said, she said, it doesn't matter, guys.
So my recommendation for the stick in this equation is to ask questions, and ask a lot of questions. To staff, having to sit and answer a bunch of questions and think critically is like the worst punishment ever. And they're going to want to make sure that they're never in that situation again.
When they know that that an argument or a conflict, when they pull you into it, it's going to result in like 20 questions from you and this long drawn out process, they start rolling their eyes. They're like, oh, can't you just yell at me and we'll get it over with? Or can't you just, but no, there's all these questions and more work for me. So that's what creates that responsibility. They're like, I'll just take care of it myself, because talking to Kelly is going to be an hour-long process, and I don't want to do that.
Yep.
And what's interesting about asking questions, in my own experience, when I've asked questions, I would say about 50% of the time when I'm asking questions about why something was done a certain way, my original assumption was wrong. I actually learned something from my staff, about 50% of the time. Now that means that if I went in just yelling and screaming, that 50% of the time I'd be wrong and they wouldn't have very much respect for me. They would look at me like I'm just bouncing off the walls, being crazy, and it doesn't really matter if they do things right or wrong. I'm going to be on them for every little thing that they do. And that's not the kind of environment that I'm trying to nurture.
Again, what I was telling you, don't make the argument or the conflict be between you and them. As a coach, you're just directing them to, okay, guys, I hear what you're saying. So where can we find, everything's always a question, where can we find the company policy regarding this issue? Their answer should be the SOPs. And then you say, okay, great, which SOP? Can you pull it up for me? They pull it up. Let them do all the work. Pull up the SOP. Can you read that paragraph right there for me? And they read it out loud. And you say, okay, so according to the written SOP that's already there, what should have happened, guys? And what you're doing is you're taking yourself out of the argument, so they can't be upset with you.
If any of this sounds familiar or you have experienced this, can I just get a yes below in the comments? It is also incredibly important that you provide clear instructions to your staff. How can they be expected to measure up to something that you never put in place or that you stated in a very vague way. And so there should always be an SOP, a standard operating procedure, or a written task that outlines exactly what it is that you'd like them to do. And I say written because we have a tendency to talk a lot. And when we talk too much, things can get lost in translation, and there's nothing to refer back to verify that what you said is actually what was done. It is always the leader's fault. It really is. If you give poor instructions, you're going to get poor results.
And what's really cool about this is if they say to you, well, you know, I read the SOP, but I didn't think it meant that. I thought it meant this. Great. Thank you for telling me that. Now that you understand what we're trying to say, that everyone in the company is supposed to check, how would you rewrite that to say those words, to really get that thought across? How do you think it should be rewritten? So again, you're not making it an issue between you, the owner, and them, or like, well, you never told me that, or you didn't say it that way, or I didn't understand, or I didn't hear you. You're taking all that out of it, and you're actually, again, creating in more work for them. And what you'll find is they know how to read between the lines. They know the intent behind what's written. But when they want to get nitty gritty with you and say, well, that's not what it says, it's not written that way, and you flip it right around on them, and you go, great, help me rewrite it. And they're like, oh, a writing assignment? I don't want to write. So they'll learn not to give you that kind of response. They're like, okay, I get it. I understand. I read between the lines. I understand what it says. So what you're doing is just everything always results in more work for them. So that's what creates that consciousness that you talked about when you said, for you, when you see a mess on the floor, you don't just step over it, you clean it up. Yep. This is the process that I've found that creates those type of conscientious employees or team members, is when you cause them to be responsible for everything that happens, whether it's good or bad, it's their fault, and they need to go take care of it. And then what detracts from that is when they know that they can just say, well, it was too confusing for me, and they know you'll push them out of the way and go, oh, well, just let me do it. They're standing back there laughing because like, I got you doing my job for me. And that's what you want to avoid. So as a coach, always think of yourself as a coach. It's all about putting work on someone else.
And that's a great way of wording it. Everything always results in more work for them. That's a great, easy way of looking at it and remembering it.
Because who works for who?
Exactly.
Right? And as business owners, sometimes we tend to push them out of the way because we know we can do it faster, quicker, more efficient. We can do a better job, but that's not the point.
If any of this sounds familiar or you've experienced this, can I just get a yes below in the comments? So when it comes to the discipline process, I recommend a 5-step strategy. The first step is you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, and you want to re-explain the instructions to them or help them look over those written instructions and make sure that it's clear. Number 2, give them a warning. This is after you've already explained it the first time and after you've already re-explained it. Now you got to let them know, look, I'm watching what you're doing and you need to step it up. Number 3, now you ask them to read the relevant issue from the handbook or the SOP, and then you ask them if their performance matches the written instructions. Next, ask them why what they did doesn't match what was written. Now, it really doesn't matter what they say. Whatever they say the reason was, the very next thing you say is, what can you do differently to avoid that problem in the future? And then whatever they say, hold them to it. Number 4, send them home from work early. Make sure that they understand how they didn't meet the expectation, and then ask them to clock out and go home, and make sure they understand that you're looking forward to seeing them tomorrow so they can pick up where they left off. And the 5th is a formal write-up. I have forms if you would like to download them from my website at davetalksbusiness.com. They're free, and you can download a disciplinary form that has all the questions on it. You just fill it out and you hand it to them and they sign it, and they have an opportunity to write their thoughts on the matter, and then you file it away. Now, your handbook should already have in it how many write-ups before their employment is terminated. So that should be something that they're already aware of. Now, you will encounter some bad apples in the hiring process, and this disciplinary process is designed to quickly weed them out of the company so they don't infect the rest of your team. So what do I recommend for the carrot? Well, it's all about motivation. And I've identified 3 different ways that different people can be motivated. Some are going to be motivated by some things and some are going to be motivated by others. But typically, the first one is autonomy. I like to work with people who like to use their mind and like to think things through and come up with their own solutions. That's the spice of life. That's the creativity. That's what makes things interesting. So autonomy is somebody who wants to be self-directed. Give them a goal, a direction where you'd like them to go, but let them figure out how to get there. As long as they get to the goal, the ends justify the means. The second is mastery. Especially if you're working with interns, they're looking to prove their skills to the world and acquire more knowledge so they can get better at that specific skill or trade. So if you're providing an environment where they feel like they're learning and growing, that sometimes can be the greatest payment. The third is purpose. Many people want a purpose. They want to be doing something important and that's going to have a greater meaning for society. So if your company is on a mission to help other people and you can explain that to your team and get them on board with that concept, they'll stick with you. Now, aside from those motivational factors, it's also extremely important that you praise your staff. Let them know that they did a good job. Give them commendation when they achieve certain goals or they meet certain expectations that you have. And something else that I do all the time is thank your team. At the end of the day, thank them for showing up because they really didn't have to. Thank them for the way they took care of those customers. Thank them for being so diligent at their work that day. Thank them. Show appreciation. Sometimes when your staff has personal issues, they would really appreciate a shoulder to cry on. So let them come to you and listen to them. That's really going to build up a really good relationship with your team. Next is have faith in your team. Let them know that you see their potential and that you want to help them to achieve their goals. Let them know that you're behind them all the way and you know that they can do it. Another thing I really like to do is remind them of the strengths that they possess. These are strengths that the rest of the team doesn't have. And it's the reason that you hired them specifically. Let them know that. Let them know that they are appreciated for their abilities. They might be sitting next to somebody who does other things very well and has abilities that they don't have. And they might feel like they need to measure up to this guy, but really you appreciate them for their abilities and their strengths. This is how you build a solid team.
Oh, I took your advice last week. Told me that I should go ahead and go in and make all Pro Web Tools do this particular thing. I said, that is a great idea. You should go to All Pro Web Tools, YouTube that, put it in as an SOP and let me see what's going on.
Oh, that is
And
so wonderful.
He immediately rolled his eyes like all the way back here to the back of his head and went, fine. Oh, but my husband was like, I have never seen you do that before. That was actually really cool. So that was really cool.
Oh, I love hearing about a win. That's awesome.
Hey, thanks for watching. So how did I do? Let me know in the comments below. And if you have an idea for a video I should do in the future, you can put that in the comments too. I also have a free small business resource toolkit available on my website. You can find the link in the description below. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. And you can also subscribe right here. And there's another great video that will help your small business right here.